Bonjour à tous. Hello everyone. In a continuance of the second part for last video on a comparison between uh, pluralism and monoist, uh, we continue this part. So all is all attribute and relativity. This is all that can be said about what truly exists. Hereby, reality is thus revealed as something utterly different from the world in which each one of us supposed himself to live. Thus, for a reductionist, a word is nothing but a deceitful show. Russell's view on what essence is in Parmenides is language, and thought is unchanging beyond of time and space when change means being or not being, whereas prosteriori indicates that the language part of being and not existence, like not being, is electromagnet of brain to produce this attribute from substance in semantic of language or mathematical law in wave of electromagnet in front lobe, which is originated from one unity that is zygote. Zygote, the eggs of biological after reproduction. In post-Eleatic reductionist, when discussed on Anaxagoras to meet philosophy of mind, identity, physicalism, and functionalism, universal matter, infinite divisibility, ID, and in fact H, which called enthalpy in prosteriori, all kind of seed, homogeneous substance contains every opposite growth of the shoot apical tip upward is called negative gravitropism, whereas growth of roots downward is called positive gravitropism. All seed has a embryo and water duplication cells and cell elongation. Thus, all homogeneity and no opposition and contradiction. Ocean, all water H2O with more salinity or less, changing a state of matter for kids or adults is like boiling, condensation, freezing, melting, sublimation, and deposition. For philosophy of science, point is modern of the atomic structure of matter. Contingent fact as a contingency is a scientific vocabulary about our world, like a Big Bang and future possibility of expanding galaxy and polarizing Milky Galaxy. In citizenship and integrity of migration, prosteriori thinks on saturation and salutes in solvent, which are completely merged with the whole. Source of as such impetus for deliberate or contingency law of function in substance by giving energy like a heat to increase temperature, or take energy by freezing to decrease temperature. As a supplementary hypothesis to reconcile theory of universal matter infinite divisibility ID, and fact H. Anaxagoras in reductionism, his direct citation is, before these things were separated, when they were all together, not so much as color was manifest, for the mixture of all objects prevented it, of the wet and the dry, of the hot and the cold, and of the bright and dark, and much earth was in it, and seeds countless in number, which were not at all like one another. For no one of them appeared like to any other. Since these things were so, one must grant that all objects are present in the totality. End of the citation. Anaxagoras does not have overt act on causal connection, which cited the powers make up all the stuffs potentially. End of the quote. Which, while in 21st century prosteriori has an overt actualization and manifestation in traditional view of substance when deals with thermodynamic of bonds in a biochemical reaction, some does not hit motivation to react as a delta H smaller zero, and some reaction needs it because fact is H and delta H. Delta means change of before and after. Delta H is bigger than zero. Gibbs free energy. The Gibbs free energy is a continuous principle of sustained energy, a thermodynamic parameter used to define a system's maximum reversible work at constant pressure and temperature. For perceiving pressure and temperature, have to mention that in a high altitude we meet low temperature and low pressure. For example, at 2438 meter or 8000 feet in elevation, water boils at just 92 Celsius or 198 Fahrenheit, that we must adjust the cooking time. Henceforth, lowering temperature and increased pressure are two parameters which can bring the atoms closer and turn it from gas into liquid and further into a solid. Thus, each interior energy H and stability organized structure S in substance is related to the temperature and pressure. It is not bad to give some example of period table or Mendeleev one, like krypton and helium are gas, and for instance helium gas turns into the liquid at minus 268 degrees Celsius, and it turns into solid at minus 272 degrees Celsius, while our atmosphere is 1 atmosphere or 25 bar or 100,000 Pascal. All is the same, measured in different gauge. And propane, which we see in the market, and propane C3H8 in cylinder fuel vehicle or barbecue in 1.22 kilopascal or 177 psi. Psi is measuring of 1 pound in a square inch of pressure. Base form liquid at 37.8 Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit. Not bad to know that mercury and bromine both exist as liquids in 25 Celsius and 1 atmosphere, which is our Earth's pressure. Now return to as a such hero and great thinker, American Joshua Gibbs. Okay, they said you want to have a short trip to go to the United States, like Mr. Putin went to the Middle East, and come back. Where you want to go? I want to go on a cemetery and I say hello to Mr. Gibbs. You are hero. You are legend. Still, while I'm reading and thinking, I cannot understand the complexity of his equation. The American Joshua Gibbs discovered as a reality, he was in a Yale or Harvard, Yale University, as a reality this equation that delta G equal delta H minus T delta S, where H is enthalpy, T is temperature, and S is entropy. When delta G is negative, means reactant substance has a kinetic energy for a spontaneous reaction or exergonic action to have their natural desire for a low delta H and high delta S. Concept and properties not bad refer to the like. Concepts and properties of thermodynamic parameters. Energy is the capacity of the system to do work. The max of work is equal delta G less than 0. When delta G is bigger than 0, you need to put energy into it. Energy is the capacity of the system to do work. Energy can be measured by different thermodynamic parameters. Enthalpy H, which is the heat content of the substance, is positive when the process is endothermic, and delta H is negative if the process is exothermic. Major unit is a kilojoule in mole, the unit of energy in the 1 molecule gram and atoms gram, which in mechanics is equal 1 Newton to displace a mass through distance of 1 meter. A Kelvin is an absolute scale gauge, as a 0 Kelvin is an absolute zero to measure the energy of atoms at true temperature, a scale which is equal minus 273 degrees Celsius. When delta G equals 0, means endothermic is equilibrium to exothermic. Entropy S is degree of the disorder of the system is positive. When the system is more disorder or reaction produces more substance, and negative to the reverse process. It's not bad to say when delta G is bigger than 0, we say that this is not spontaneous. It doesn't mean not reactants cannot make a react and make a new substance. It means the billion and the outlet is less than reactants, so it doesn't have a very high efficiency reaction. That's all. That is, we have to, our fellow students all together, to understand. Gibbs free energy is the measure of the spontaneously of the process. The more negative the process, then more spontaneous the reaction is. Quiz, l'épreuve, dans la France, l'épreuve, test. Which of the following statement is true when concerning the physical reaction shown below? H2O liquid is changed to H2O slide, like our freezing refrigerator. A. The reaction is spontaneous at high temperature. The reaction is spontaneous at low temperature. The reaction is always spontaneous regardless of the temperature. The reaction D. The reaction is never spontaneous. E. The reaction is spontaneous at the freezing point. Answer. If you put the liquid water in freezer, heat or interior energy or enthalpy goes out. So like a temperature water from, for example, 25 centigrade goes to the temperature -20. Thus, delta H is negative. Now, what happens for entropy or S? Solid water or ice is very organized molecule by its atoms and has a low negative entropy, while liquid has a high entropy or high S. So in H2O, in a water liquid to water slide, delta H and delta S both are negative. Thus delta G is negative, and this is a low temperature. This is a low temperature by Gibbs equation. Delta G equal delta H minus T delta S. Thus the option and answer is B to correct, which was the reaction is spontaneous at low temperature, while in temperature 0 delta G is equal 0. So water in liquid are equilibrium with the water slide. Thus, based on a Gibbs equation, delta G equal delta H minus delta S, when delta H is positive. So remember right now I work in Toronto, York Center, North York, and Scarborough for HAPCO. They said, okay, we make him mental health, and after he doesn't know where is he, and now I know who I am. So that was related to the refrigerator. Okay, now delta H positive. If delta H positive and delta S positive and temperature is high, so delta G means, or delta Gibbs is a negative and a spontaneous reaction, like this one, like a boiling. For example, when a state of the water on our planet, on Earth, is a liquid. So when we put the energy on an oven, so make it delta H is getting higher, and after the molecules of the H2O is changing to the boiling, and delta S is getting more disorder, so it's getting positive. And T is temperature is high, the reaction is a vapor, so a spontaneous reaction. Delta H is negative and delta S is negative, and temperature is low, like a freezing of the water. Delta G is negative, a spontaneous reaction. When delta H is minus and delta S is positive, temperature doesn't matter what the temperature, the delta G is negative and spontaneous regardless of the temperature. And this, it shows how much priority and hierarchy of the delta S on a delta H. So delta S is very important. And delta H positive, but delta S is negative, that what the reaction not happening, because delta G is positive based on that equation, delta G equal delta H minus T delta S, and when not happening means is not spontaneous, but it does not mean the reaction not happening. It means the outlet of the reaction is not high and has a low efficiency. Again, we emphasize on this. So now we want to base on this scientific point from philosophy to make a philosophy of politics and philosophy of sociology. When something happening for a different ideology, like for example demonstration between two groups, delta H is getting positive, but delta S is negative, because sociology, for example, in German or in France is bigger and huge like an ocean, and you want to put the iceberg inside as make it cold the whole society, is not possible, because they have a too much culture into it. But for new country like Canada, by 35 40 million, is very hazardous. So look how much philosophy in science and how much good thinking based on the logic of science, it can help us for good judgment in politics, in justice, and in holistically way. And other point, for example, we will have a too much discussion, kingdom, not kingdom, monarch or not monarch. That is all is superficial. All is related to the people and culture, to backbone of farmers' culture, industrial culture, workers' culture, and situation of education, and situation of the politics. And look how much right now the formation of the crown is changed in the Europe and even in the Middle East. Now, head of the crown, they have a suit and tie like other people. If you 5 centuries ago, you want to imagine the king of the England or queen of the England, or Louis XIV, Louis XV, to play, for example, have a suit and tie like other people. So the culture is gradually, by Darwinism and evolution, is getting change and change. Now the oligarch in USA, like Amazon or Tesla, they have a much more money than king of the Saudi Arabia or Europe. So, and you are monotheism, so money talks. So if money talks, they are more king. Anyhow, just want to say, the revolution, eruption, and volcano, lava is not good. It's not good for society. It's burning is not good. And that's all the point. Just let them education to work and increase and raise the culture. And this is why I'm doing. I put the energy from myself by subsidy of the social welfare, because for not let us to work, and put this energy for culture, because this is an experiment where we have to learn from the history, as Hegel said. So continue. In boiling water at temperature 100 degree, or better to say by Kelvin, in 373.15 Kelvin. So result is delta G equal 0, which indicates that liquid water and water vapor are in equilibrium. A temperature greater than 373 Kelvin, delta G is negative and water evaporate spontaneously, and delta H and delta S are positive. And by high temperature, more than 100 Celsius or 373 Kelvin, based on a Gibbs equation, delta G equal delta H minus T delta S, delta G will be negative. The normal boiling point of water is therefore 373 Kelvin. Above the normal boiling point, the T delta S term is greater than delta H and making delta G less than 0. Hence, liquid water evaporates spontaneously. Below the normal boiling, delta H is greater than T delta S, because in a high altitude, lowering temperature and increased pressure are two parameters which can bring the atoms closer and turn it from gas into liquid, as a condensation for water vapor occurs, like in cloud in a sky. Thus, delta G bigger than 0 and reverse is happening. Thus, liquid water does not boiling or evaporate spontaneously, but water vapor spontaneously condense to liquid. So water state is liquid. When you hear we have evaporation but not boiling. If you want to boil the water, you have to put the energy into it. But when it goes to the high altitude, this vapor is waiting for changing of the condition. Immediately in a high altitude, when it's getting temperature cold and pressure high, so quickly the vapor as a cloud is making raining, and this is the respiration of our planet. Rain, water, liquid, again vapor, and again rain, and North Pole and South Pole. Photosynthesis is one of the main of the respiration and respiratory on the planet, and by photosynthesis make H2O. Water vapor goes H2O, goes to inside the sky. This above discussion related to physical change of water, as the state of water is liquid on Earth's planet, while much more rest of the reaction is relevant while much more rest of reaction is relevant to the chemical reactions. It is important to recognize that a positive value of delta G for a reaction does not mean that no products will form if the reactant in their standard states are mixed. It means only that at equilibrium the concentration of the products will be less than concentration of the reactant. So efficiency of reaction is low. For example, large electrical generator, mechanical to electrical, has an efficiency of 99%. Chemical battery to electricity has a 90% efficiency. Yeast as a fermentation cell for changing the starch of the grain to the beer or any brewery. Yeast cell efficiency for chemical to chemical is 2 to 4%. Efficiency mitochondria for human body for 1 mole glucose is 45%. Photosynthesis or our machine system. Photosynthesis light to chemical is 30%. International combustion engine has a 25 to 30% efficiency. 1 mole of substance is equal. When we are talking about the 1 mole, we have to, what does it mean 1 mole? 1 molecule grams of each atoms has the same number. This is related to the other hero and other legend named Avogadro. 1 mole of a substance is equal to 6 times 10 to exponent to 23 units of that substance or particles of that substance, such as atoms, molecules, or ions. Calculate the standard free energy change delta G at 25 centigrade for the reaction H2. Other question to understand all reaction is calculation, is a number, and is a measurement. H2 gas plus O2 oxygen gas gives H2O2 as a liquid hydrogen peroxide, which was dominant material before in Azotobacter. When aerobic microorganism started, the life is changed to deletion of the hydrogen peroxide, and we have H2O O2 and endo nitrogen inside of our atmosphere. So all the people said this is what it is not. We have to raise the culture, evolution, Darwinism, all is changing. Nothing will be stable. Nothing will be as this is what it is. And history told us. Test example. At 25 degree or 200 at 25 degree is equal to 298 Kelvin, because 1 Kelvin, 0 of the centigrade is a 273 Kelvin. The standard enthalpy change delta H is for this reaction, which I said H2 plus O2, H2O2. The delta H is minus 187.78, and the absolute entropies of the products and reactant are SH2O2 equal 109 mole in Kelvin, SO2 equal 205 joule in mole Kelvin, and SH2E equal 130 joule mole in Kelvin. So calculate to this reality that this reaction which mentioned H2 plus O2, H2O2 is spontaneous or not. Means if delta make a calculation how much the measurement of the delta G. So if it's delta G is 0 negative, spontaneous is positive, means not. Delta S, we calculate S H2O2 minus S, stability of organized molecule of SO2 plus SH2. When we calculate delta S equal 1 mole H2O2 times 109 joule in a mole Kelvin minus 1 mole hydrogen 130 joule mole in Kelvin plus 1 mole O2 is a 205 joule mole in Kelvin. So result is minus 226 joule in Kelvin. As we see, 2 moles gas to produce 1 mole liquid. And based on the delta G equal delta H minus T delta S, so delta G is equal minus 100 delta H. Delta G is equal minus delta H was 187, so minus 187 kilojoule on mole minus 298 Kelvin times and multiply to minus 226 joule mole on Kelvin. Because it's a minus 226 joule in a mole Kelvin, we have to change all the joule to kilojoule. So divide off the 1000, and result will be after that positive. So delta G equal minus delta H. Delta G is equal delta H minus T delta S. Delta H is minus 187 kilojoule mole plus minus T delta S is right now is minus T delta S is getting equal to 67, positive is 67 kilojoule on mole. But because the totality of the delta H is bigger as a negative to little positive of T delta S, the result will be totally negative and is on a minus 120 kilojoule on mole. So delta G is equal to 120 kilojoule on mole, and when delta G is negative, so the reaction is spontaneous, and this is the answer of the question. In this particular case, And this is just one sample. When you go inside of the Google it and the YouTube, numerous of the such a this tutor and such example, all reaction inside of the factory and biochemical, all has such a this measurement, and you can calculate this reaction is a high efficiency or low efficiency based on a efficiency of the energy and equation of the Gibbs. In this particular case, the enthalpy term dominates, indicating that the strength of the bonds formed in the products more than compensates for the unfavorable delta S term and for the energy needed to break bonds in the reactants. In modern, I write all my context on my YouTube, and so you can read and calculate by yourself. In a modern substance, this conclusion is very important. What I want to do, what is my journey, what is my inference, and what is my deduction. That's why I want to say the whole two session. In modern substance, we pass physics and astronomy, cosmology for creature of Milky Galaxy and our solar system as a part where our Earth as in contain, whereas we think on chemistry and biochemistry, on how azotobacterium lived and how O2 oxygen dominated in air to forcing photosynthesis and respiration in analytic current H2O, N2 and O2 are dominant stuff or matter in our planet. In philosophy of prosteriori on substance and attribute as the opposite or contrary, like all seeds has a germination, as a citation by Anaxagoras, and as a new method of science in biology, opposite sides growth of the shoot apical tip upward is called negative gravitropism, whereas growth of the root downward is called positive gravitropism. While as much as electromagnet important rather than in neurotransmitter in animal, but in botany, chemical messenger or hormone. And vital hormone in this example for root is auxin, for gravitropism of seedling, while other main hormones, gibberellin, abscisic acid, and cytokinin, to form root and shoot and fruit as a constructive mode in botany. This is conclusion. So the result: monoist, pluralism, Zeus, goddess, monoist, monotheism, being, not being, all is like a wool, big volume and density and weight is nothing. Thank you very much.